I want to ask you a question. Why didn't Trump, while president of the United States of America for 4 years, save the children? And let me tell you which children that I am asking why he did not save. It is widely believed between 30 to 50 million Americans and Trump supporters. It is widely believed among them that Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and to some degree Obama, but most Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, and a bunch of others that belong in that genre, that they are global barbaric pedophiles. That Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton and Obama and Biden all belong to a global cabal of pedophilia where young children are passed around among them across the planet in their sphere. They also believe, this 30 to 50 million Trump supporters believe that this same group, Biden and Clinton and Nancy Pelosi and all that crowd, that they are flesh eaters of infants, of little babies, newborns, that they eat their flesh. Now, this is widely believed, firmly understood, and tenaciously opposed by at least 30 to 50 million people that are supporters of Trump. They also believe not only they're pedophiles, but that they eat the blood of children, newborns, but they also drink the blood. They eat the flesh, rather, of newborns, but they also eat the blood, eat the flesh, drink the blood. Let me get it right. They drink the blood of newborns. Biden, Clinton, Pelosi, Obama, and all that crowd. These are things that they do, and that it is rigorously and vigorously believed by at least 30 to 50 million people that support Trump, that young people are used and passed around in a pedophilia ring, and newborn babies are eaten at ceremonies and their blood drank by this crowd. Why didn't Trump use his presidential powers to save the children? If he knew this and his support base knew it and know it to be a fact, know it that children are being raped through pedophilia by the thousands on a global scale, that the flesh of newborn babies, that doctors are telling their mothers that the baby is stillbirth, or that the baby died, or that aborted babies are served on silver platters with caviar to Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, and that the blood of these children is being drank in a ceremonial toast. Why didn't Trump stop this? Why didn't he open an investigation? I mean, even if these powers, and there was a deep state, and there was the swamp, and all of those things that would have worked against Trump bringing out this truth, but he was the president of the United States of America. He was the president, could have called for a Department of Justice investigation at the time of having Mitch McConnell in the Senate, and at the time of also having the House of Representatives, could have opened a congressional investigation and brought people in, whether or not they were willing to testify, could have subpoenaed people, could have subpoenaed Hillary Clinton, could have subpoenaed Joe Biden, could have subpoenaed Obama, could have subpoenaed others that may have been Jeffrey Epstein, could have subpoenaed records, could get records of hotels, of special meetings, he could have wiretapped, using the Department of Justice, could have had hearings. Why didn't he do it? Or better yet, Why didn't he at least mention it in one of his speeches of the hundreds of speeches that he gave over a 4-year period? Why? Why not? For the children. Why didn't he save the children? Did Trump know that children were being eaten by Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden as a pedophile? And he did nothing? He said nothing? Oh, and don't give me this business that he was working undercover to get it done, that there was a major move. Let me tell you what the Department of Justice has recently been discovered as have done. That Trump ordered the Department of Justice to wiretap the phone numbers of Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, even one of his own attorneys was wiretapped and secret information gathered. I mean, I guess you see where I'm going with this. If all of this is true and Trump did not raise his voice and alert, even if there was a tenacious fight against him, but did not raise his voice and bring presidential attention to this unbelievable, if it is true, that Joe Biden is a pedophile, that he drinks the flesh of children, that he eats the flesh of babies, newborns, and he drinks the flesh of children, the blood of children. Why didn't he say something? Why didn't he? He was the president of the United States of America at the time. The FBI, Homeland Security, National Security, the Department of Justice, all these investigative agencies, congressional hearings. Yet he did not raise his voice or speak in one time to say, I want to save the children from these pedophiles, from these barbaric, blood-drinking, flesh-eating Democrats. Why didn't he say that at the very least? He never said it. Never said a word. Never said, never called an action, never called for an investigation. You say, well, Pastor, he did call for an investigation. It was a secret investigation because he wanted to remain secret. Well, really? How could you call for an investigation of something as heinous as this? And the leakers not leak it to the Washington Post or the New York Times. No, my friends, he never called for an investigation. He never mentioned it. It was never part of any discussion held with him and anybody. But yet there are people that believe that Biden is a pedophile and that Clinton drinks the blood of children and eats the flesh of newborn babies, along with all the other Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, all the rest of the crowd. Something about this ought to be a wake-up call. You know, I am let me qualify myself here. I am no supporter of Joe Biden. I call him Joe Biden my time. I'm no supporter of Joe Biden. He's the last person on the planet I'd ever give support to. If I'm going to give support to somebody, I give support to Trump before I did Biden, and I ain't going to give support to either one of them. But I definitely ain't no Biden, and I definitely ain't no Hillary Clinton supporter. I definitely ain't no, and I ain't no Democrat or Democrat. I ain't none of that. So let's be clear about what we can be clear about. I ain't for these people simply because I'm raising this argument. I'm trying to simply show you the absolute lunacy of the Trump supporter believing that these people drink the blood of children. And if it is true, if I'm wrong, and it is true, then why the hell didn't Trump do something to save the children? Hell, if I was president and I know children are being eaten, their flesh is being eaten, their blood being drank, and children being raped by pedophiles, if I'm president and I know that, and I don't tell the American public about this, then hang me from the nearest tree. Don't revolt for me. Hang me from the nearest tree. Trump never said a word. You know why? Come on now. It's me. You can talk. We can talk. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. You can say it. You can say it. The reason why he didn't do it, you know why he didn't do it? You know why. Because it's a lie. Now, because that is a lie, it does not mean that pedophilia is not going on. I did not escape that. It's like Pizzagate, right? Like the man who allegedly had Hillary Clinton pedophile and selling children and eating babies at a pizza store in Washington, D.C. And the man went in there and shot up a whole bunch of, went in there and there was nothing there. But it was a lie that was put out there and people passed it around and millions of people believed it, called it Pizzagate. It wasn't there. It's not true. Now, I'm not saying that there's not pedophilia going on. Jeffrey Epstein and probably a bunch of other people that somebody said that Bill Gates was involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And one of the reasons why Melinda Gates is leaving Bill Gates is because, he was too close a relationship to that pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. That be true. Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, hell, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were good friends. But on the scale of which it's believed that this pedophilia is going on and that this blood's being drank and flesh being eaten, it just isn't true. But the very fact that it's being passed around as gospel, and do that, but aren't these 30 to 50 million people credible of having some reasonable intellectual strengths to discern light from darkness and truth from lies and reality from plain old BS? Because that's all that this business is. I'm not saying none of these people are not individuals of this, but this whole business about these parties of eating flesh, and there's never been one shred of evidence. And again, if you still believe it's true, then you have to discredit Trump for not doing anything. Because damn it, if you were president of the United States, I don't care how deep the state was, you would have reached in to save these children from these pedophiles, from these blood drinkers, and from these flesh eaters. You would have. Even you would not have been silent on this. You would have reached in to save the children. And if you knew about it and didn't do anything, then you bear the responsibility of perhaps being the biggest phony, the biggest hypocrite, being perhaps the worst person of knowing what's right as president, and you did nothing to save the children. And Trump did, said, and will do and say nothing to save the children. The only time Trump's going to come to save something, it won't be America or the children. It's going to be Trump's ass. That's the only thing that Trump wants to save is his big, fat ass. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant. Reports started leaking out over the weekend that Ivanka and Jared have been dissing Daddy Trump. Now, from what we understand, Jared, as you know, was a special envoy to the Middle East, and Ivanka was just sort of a catch-all floating through the powerful office of the presidency. You might remember that the Secret Service Department rejected Jared, giving him clearance to serve, to be in the White House and the Oval Office. They felt that he did not clear, according to Secret Service standards, because of his financial involvements. He was at $600 million in debt in a building here in New York City that was going worthless by the day. And because of his mountain debt and engagements that he had, and of course, Jared's father, who was also a real estate developer, was sent to prison by Chris Christie when he was governor of the state of New York for his shenanigans in the real estate, doing illegal deals as well. And the Secret Service Department looked at Jared, the son of this, and Kushner, and decided that he did not qualify and recommended that he would not be given clearance. Well, Trump overrode the Secret Service Department and gave his son-in-law, Jared, top secret clearance, the highest level of clearance that one can get working around the president. and then appointed him as special envoy to travel to the Middle East to broker a peace deal that is now referred to as the Abraham Accord that was put together that led to the latest intifada between Israel and Gaza going back a month or so ago now, where the fighting went on for a couple of weeks of firing rockets there. It's the Abraham Accords that were put together by Jared, who himself understands I comes from a Jewish bloodline. But now we're hearing that Ivanka and Jared are no longer wanting to associate with Daddy Trump. And the reason being is that what's being alleged is that they don't want to be associated with the big lie. That there have been 70 court cases brought by Donald Trump in at least 15 different state locales contesting the election results. And all but one of those courts ruled that the election was legal, that there was nothing untoward, that there was nothing there to see. And one of the judges just called it a laughing, frivolous case that was brought, declaring that the election was an election fraud. But Trump continues to promote that. Of course, you've got the cyber, if you will, ninjas out there in Arizona conducting an audit. There have been several audits. The state of Georgia has been re-audited 11 times or somewhere thereabouts. And the state of Pennsylvania is considering a cyber ninja type of a audit as well, stroking Trump's ego that the election was stolen, and that somehow or another these audits and investigations are going to turn up information that people with satellite powers from Italy was causing the voter counting machines in several states to flip votes from Biden to Trump, and it was all being done out of Italy by a special satellite dish and a special, if you will, power that was put together called Italy-gate, and it just gets more ridiculous as it goes along. That many of the votes were, the election paper was bamboo paper from China that would automatically transfer the vote from Trump to Biden, and they're looking for bamboo shoots and bamboo linen, and it's a mess. And so it's being reported now. It's being reported now that Jared, who is a young man, and Ivanka want to try to move forward with their lives. They're ditching Daddy Trump. Not only that, but it was also reported last week that Jared has signed a 7-figure book deal with one of America's big publishers to write his memoirs of the White House. And as of this day, no one has offered Trump a book deal, not even people in the conservative press or Mike Lindell or some of the others. So there are also the reports, and I don't know how true any of these reports are. They could all be rumors, and I tend to try to avoid reporting rumors as best I possibly can. If I'm caught up in this one, then I'm caught up in it. But it is alleged that Trump is ticked off that his son-in-law has now got a multi-million-dollar book deal, and nobody cares for Trump's story. That, too, has, as you know, Trump does not want anybody getting ahead of him in terms of popularity. And so the Ivanka and Jared and the children are kind of disindicted. They're not having any relationship. It's alleged that maybe Jared calls once a week now just to check in, but there's really no family, if you will, excitement going there. And, you know, Trump has a sister and he has a niece, and they've all been issuing reports about the straining of the family. His sister was a federal judge, but when Trump became president, she actually stepped down to stop an investigation into her life because of the insidious criminal activities that Trump has been known for years. She stepped down from a federal judgeship, knowing that Trump was a con man and all of this was going to come to pass, that Trump was not going to change his ways. He was going to run the White House as a criminal enterprise, which he did. And she wanted to get completely absolved of this. she walked away. And of course, you know, Michael Cohen, who was Trump's personal attorney for a while, was caught up in the Stormy Daniels deal of paying hush money of $130,000 to Stormy Daniels to keep her from coming out and testifying. And what the reports that Stormy Daniels had of the documentation of her sexual encounters with Trump, she accepted $130,000, and Michael Cohen was the one who facilitated that payment. But the way he facilitated it through his own account, and then allegedly was paid back through Trump, you know, as a retainer money, was illegal, and therefore he ended up catching a 3-year federal prison sentence as a result of that. But in that federal indictment and in that conviction was named Individual 1, who was an unindicted co-conspirator to the event. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on right now with Trump. And I suspect the reason why Ivanka and Jared are jumping ship is that they can see the ship is sinking. And they want to swim as far away from the Titanic called Tribulation Trump that they can before the thing goes on. Now, turn a corner for just a second. I expect that indictments, as you just heard in my earlier reporting, that a panel of judges, federal judges, have looked at the activity of Rudolph Giuliani, former mayor of the city of New York, a former attorney general for the Southern District of America, has had his law license suspended. And this is just the first of a lot of trees that are going to fall in the forest, and everybody's going to hear the sound of when they crash. And I believe that Ivanka and Jared, they've been given inside stories, accounts by the attorneys, that that the indictments are getting ready to fall, and they too may be indicted, or they may have already given testimony about things that they know about Trump in order to avoid indictment. But I can tell you, my friends, this thing is getting ready to get uglier than Lamont Monroe. Now, this thing getting ready to get ugly, and Lamont Monroe was ugly. I shouldn't say that. Lamont was really my friend. We called him Doofus. He just had a long bus head, and he act funny, but he's really a man of a great heart. And I literally, as a friend, he was a great friend, but everybody, you know, as young boys, we called him what we called him. And he died several years ago. He was out in Brooklyn. I went and preached at a church where he was a deacon at a church out there in Brooklyn off of Eastern Parkway, 30 years ago. And so I don't mean to defame Lamont. If I have any of my friends from North Carolina listening or his family members listening, I think one of his brothers or cousins is also a bishop in a Methodist church. So, but anyway, this thing's getting ready to get ugly. And I suspect that the indictments are going to start falling late July, early August. In fact, I didn't expect this. I knew that Rudy was going to lose his law license. I didn't expect it to happen quite this quick. So because Cy Vance is now leaving, his term will be up on the 31st of December, and he's now the district attorney for the city of New York. And I suspect, and he's the one who's leading the investments into Trump enterprises, into tax fraud or in income tax or filings, and along with Tish James, who is the Attorney General for the state of New York, they've joined forces against Trump. And so now I expected that, probably that the indictments would fall sometime in August or September. But it looks now like they could be falling sometime late July to early August. But Giuliani, I used to admire Giuliani. I used to, even though he was a Republican and, he was not for the Hamite people here in New York City. They all hated him. He and Al Sharpton fought like cats and dogs. But I admired Giuliani at one point in time. I really thought he was a just man. There is the unexplainable cult-like effect that Donald Trump has on reasonably good people. I know a lot of good people who used to be members of this church. They used to be members of this church. They were Japheth. And I've talked with them, had dinner with them, I sat with them. And they were reasonable people. I've examined them psychologically, if you will, if you want to say that, from head to toe. But they have flipped, and they've allowed themselves to promote this con man, to promote this shyster, this psychopath, Trump. And Giuliani's done this. Giuliani's thrown away. They used to call Giuliani Mr. Mayor of America because of his great work during the 9/11 event. On that day, that Tuesday morning in September of 2001, Giuliani took the stage and stood for America. And we all felt the better, even though there was a tragic event of bringing down those World Trade Center towers. And for him to throw all this away behind a psychopath, Trump is a sick man. Trump should be in a straitjacket. And Giuliani threw all of that away. Now his law license has been suspended. His name is in the mud. He'll never recover. He's an alcoholic and he's broke. And Trump ain't gonna give him no money. But Giuliani, okay, but there are literally others, members of this church who were decent people who've allowed themselves to throw their lives, to throw their reputations away. They used to be members of this church. They've thrown their lives, their reputation away to follow this psychopath. Trump needs to be in a straitjacket. But the indictments are coming. And we're waiting to hear now the outcome of the testimony of Alan Weisselberg. The pressure being put on Alan Weisselberg to tell the feds where the bones are buried. Because Alan Weisselberg has been with the Trump organization for 40 years. He knows where all the bones are buried. He knows where all the illegal activity went on with tax filing, business dealings, the like. This boy, Alan Weisselberg, you're looking at, he knows all of it. And a lot of people are saying that Alan Weisselberg is going to flip, that they're putting enough pressure on him, he's going to tell the feds where, and once he makes a deal, you got to tell everything you know. You got to tell every time Trump went to the bathroom and what he did when he was in there. You got to tell everything. You just can't tell some things, which got Michael Cohen in trouble because he didn't tell everything, so they sent him to jail anyway. But Weisselberg may take a bullet for Trump. He may fall on his sword. He may take a bullet for Trump. He's an older man. He figure, well, I'll die in prison, or maybe they won't be so harsh on me. I'll go to one of these federal, country club prisons and I'll be out in a few years. He may do that. But the problem is now Alan Weisselberg has 2 children that are also involved in having received gifts, free condos, automobiles, tuition paid at these fancy New York private schools, and taxes were not filed. So they can go to jail. And while Weisselberg himself may discover that I'll fall on my sword or I'll take a bullet for Trump, I don't think he's going to let his children go to jail for Trump. I don't think he's going to do that. And I think his children are telling him, we don't need to go to, Daddy, all you got to do is tell the feds the truth, but don't let us go to jail for 7 to 10 years for Donald Trump. The man's a psychopath, and hell, you know he is. So that's where all that's at. We don't know, what the grand jury has heard so far. We don't know what Weisselberg has said so far. He may have already flipped. We don't know. But this thing is going to get ugly in the next couple of months. And I think the first shoe just fell today with the suspension of Giuliani and his law license. You're going to see a whole lot of stuff turn over here in New York City because Trump ran a criminal enterprise, and I think there's power now to expose him. And I'm going to conclude with this. The panel that suspended Rudy Giuliani's law license says it's one thing that is promoting this lie that Trump is still the president. He's not. Or that the election was stolen. It wasn't. But potentially it is endangering the welfare of all Americans, because you got a lot of other people out there that are believing this and have taken up arms and are looking to defend Trump to the death. And this is dangerous for America, but it's far more dangerous for the democracy. I've already stated in one of my early postings that democracy is now dead. It will not be revived. Nobody will believe in the voting system anymore. Trump and his psychopaths have effectively killed the voting process as a legitimate process of choosing our elected officials. That's gone. You ain't gonna never see that no more. And the dark money coming into this election process will turn our nation to a nation, as it remains, a nation of oligarchs, something on the order of what happens in Russia. But democracy is gone, and Trump and Obama can be accredited with destroying it. However, I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant. So George Floyd, the late George Floyd, St. George Floyd, there's two statues of St. George Floyd, right? And I'm going to play you the first statue of George Floyd, Mr. Engineer, that was sent to us by Bob Jackson. And then I got to tell you about a 700-pound statue of George Floyd as well. This is going to be really, really interesting. The competition, I got to call this segment, the competition of George Floyd statues. All right? So I'm going to run the first George Floyd statue that was produced last month, and then I'll show you the George Floyd statue that was unveiled on yesterday. Mr. Engineer.
St. George Floyd statues for sale. Pray to St. George Floyd in your hour of need. Keep your St. George Floyd statue on your desk at work. Your boss wouldn't dare do anything but fear you. We have one you can attach to the hood of your car, like a Mercedes. Scare all white people with a large St. George Floyd statue in your front yard. Order yours today. Counterfeit, $20 bills accepted.
All right, so there's another George Floyd statue. Yeah, it was unveiled on yesterday and out in Newark at the City Hall of Newark, New Jersey on yesterday. And it says that the city of Newark paid tribute to George Floyd on Wednesday, unveiling a 700-pound bronze statue in his honor outside City Hall. And that says that Mayor Ras Baraka, along with other dignitaries, were on hand for a ceremony where the artwork was presented. Mr. Engineer, let's take a look at this thing. The second George Floyd statue is becoming very popular. St. George is becoming the founder of all Hamite people. Let it rip, Mr. Engineer.
More than a year after his murder at the hands of police, George Floyd was memorialized in a way most have never seen him, sitting at a bench in peace. The 700-pound bronze statue unveiled Wednesday outside City Hall in Newark was a donation made to the city by filmmaker Leon Pickney. A symbol Mayor Ras Baraka hopes sparks conversation in the city, serving as a reminder of the past and the change that needs to happen.
Hopefully when people walk by and they see it, and they participate in it, and hopefully it inspires them to become active in the struggles that are happening right here in Newark.
That is a sacred space, so we must treat that as a sacred space where people can come and assess themselves.
For artist Stanley Watts, the goal, he says, was to humanize the father and husband who lost his life, sparking a global movement. Revising even for a moment those last horrifying images of Floyd, the world has come to know.
The world needed a peaceful George. The world needed him relaxed and chilling on a bench. And that's what we produced.
The city of Newark is currently leading the fight for change across the state, urging lawmakers to pass landmark legislation that would authorize the creation of a civilian complaint review board, which would put law enforcement operations and conduct under the spotlight. Officials say it's just one part of Floyd's legacy.
Now, the statue will be on display outside City Hall for at least a year. It's all part of a citywide initiative that aims to bring a world-class public art program here to the city.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think about that statue? Obviously I have a very, if you will, diverse audience, various types of people, but not so many varying beliefs or disbeliefs. But what do you think about that? 700-pound bronze statue of George Floyd sitting on a park bench like a philosopher, right? They've transformed this George Floyd into this person of peace, is what they said. Let me say a couple of things here. Number one is that there is a race war going on in America. And if the Democrats cannot keep many of the very wealthy Wall Street, Bill Gates types interested in them, they're being up a creek without a paddle. On the other hand, many liberal and progressive Japheth people, politician types running for office, if they can't keep the Hamites interested in voting along party lines, the Democrats will lose America to the conservatives and to the MAGA nation and to Trump again. So what they're doing is that they're using, have you ever seen this? It took, how many years did it take to get a statue of Dr. King, right? Now, we got Dr. King's birthday, America got it, back in 1983, I think it was. I was a member of the Baptist Ministers Conference when that took place. Right? I was the secretary. I was the big auspicious day. It's been 40 years or so, right? Somebody there, but almost 40 years. Right? And the statue of Dr. King that's now at the King Center down in Atlanta, Georgia, in Washington, the statue of Dr. King that's now on the grounds of the memorial grounds there in Washington, D.C., off from the Jefferson Memorial, was dedicated about 5 years ago, right? Now, Dr. King's been dead since 68? How many is that? 32, 50 years Dr. King's been dead. And they just put up a statue to him, right? They're in Washington on Memorial Grounds. They put that statue for him up just 5 years ago, maybe longer, not much longer, right? And but they put up a statue to George Floyd naked, and the boy ain't been dead more than a year. It's something about this, though. It's something about this about black people are crazy as hell. Next thing they're going to be trying to do is have a George Floyd holiday. It took 50 years to get a statue of Dr. King on the memorial grounds of Washington, D.C. And I think they have a little bust of him down in Atlanta at the King Library. I was down in Memphis 4 or 5 years ago, and I went to the Lorraine Motel. I was there, held a prayer meeting at the Lorraine Motel, and they got a statue of him there, Dr. King. But George Floyd, a year and a month after his death, gets a 700-pound bronze statue. If I was listening on some of the boys talk, you know, they designed George Floyd sitting down with his leg gapped open, chilling, right, with his arm on the park bench. And some of the boys from down in Arkansas said, just like them Negroes, look at those lazy Negro. Most people have statues standing up or riding on a horse or carrying a musket. Most statues they got this creep sitting down with his legs gapped open, chilling. Lazy Negroes. If this is the best epitome of lazy Negroes, I don't know what is. Sick. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Half naked, chilling, right? I don't think I've ever seen a sitting statue before. I've seen all kinds of statues and busts. I've seen Robert E. Lee on a horse and everybody else, you know. This is, somebody say, if that ain't the epitome of the lazy Negroes, I don't know what is. It's really sad. It's extremely sad that there is this promotion of racism. And they put it on public ground on City Hall. You know, the people in Newark, of course, could get together and say, this is a violation of our constitutional rights to have this person placed on property paid for by our taxes. Get this damn statute off of this disgusting, let me change the word from damn to disgusting. Can I do that? Let me change from damn to disgusting. Get this disgusting statue of a lazy black man. Get this disgusting statue of a lazy black man off of public property and put it in your damn house or on your lawn somewhere. At any rate, everybody, I'm James David Manning. I'm the Lord's servant. Breaking news today here in the city of New York, a panel of judges who have been assembled because of complaints by a large number of lawyers and other people of the judicial, if you will, alignment, have complained against Rudolph Giuliani, former mayor of the city of New York and former district attorney general of the Southern District of New York and former campaign attorney for Donald John Trump, Tribulation Trump, has had his law license suspended. This is big, big, big news. That Giuliani, who was once the attorney general for the Southern District, the most populous activity of criminal activity in the United States of America, he led that group, he led that organization as the attorney general for the Southern District here in New York for years. And now he himself has had his law license, his ability to practice law, suspended, reason given for, in the statement that has been read according to the panel of judges that issued this suspension through the New York Bar Association, that Giuliani has been sufficiently accused of promoting lies, mainly the big lie that the election was stolen and that Trump is the official president and that Joe Biden isn't. And as a result of Giuliani spreading what is known and empirically can be designated as a lie, he's endangering the public. Now, you know, lawyers have a lot of leeway. They have a lot of pizzazz and a lot of things they can say and do to zealously, if you will, defend their clients. But this panel of judges, not just lawyers or people complaining, but this panel of judges who have to sit on the bench as judges have decided that what Giuliani is doing is endangering the American public, that people could die, and perhaps some have already died, by saying that Trump is still the president. And for them to suspend him of his law license, this is a major step of what I believe will be a lot of people stripped also of their law license and other official capacities, as well as the wheels of justice and judgment rolls on as a result of Tribulation Trump refusing to acknowledge that he lost the election, and that was just all there is to it. But you know, I want to recommend that Robert Jeffers and Franklin Graham, just to name a few, along with a whole host of other ecclesiastical types and the entire Southern Baptist genre. Now listen to me very carefully. If this panel of judges have reached a thoughtful legal decision that what Giuliani is doing in promoting that Donald Trump is still the president, promoting the big lie, that it is worthy of taking away his law license. It is worthy. You know, a lawyer can stand before a judge and a judge say, my client is innocent, even if the client is guilty. But for Franklin Graham, Robert Jeffers, the whole kit and caboodle of Southern Baptists, and other religious clergy, I recommend that the ecclesiastical community far and wide in America strip Franklin Graham, defrock them, defrock the entire Southern Baptist Church and all others of the evangelical movement. Defrock them, defrock Robert Jeffers, strip them of their law license or their ordination license to preach the gospel, because they have been the church, the Southern Baptist Church, the largest evangelical combo organization in America, have been spreading a lie. The Southern Baptist, Franklin Graham, Robert Jeffers have been spreading a lie. The church is spreading a lie. The church is spreading the big lie. The church, the evangelical Southern Baptists and other affiliates and associates are spreading a lie. Trump is not the president. He is not. He's a servant of Satan. And as Giuliani has been stripped of his law license, then the ecclesiastical community, I'm calling for all members of the ecclesiastical community, men of the cloth, men and women of understanding of the theological and religious responsibility of truth, to strip the Southern Baptists of recognition, to strip Franklin Graham, to strip Robert Jeffers, and all of the host of everyone that laid their hand upon the shoulders of this tribulation Trump, this con man, this liar from way back when, this psychopath. They are promoting a psychopathical con man. The Southern Baptist evangelicals are promoting a lie. And the judges here in New York, and a panel of men and women, have declared that Giuliani cannot practice law. Now, we have to, as members of the ecclesiastical community, we got to stop the church from spreading the biggest lie in the history of American religion, theology, and politics. Me, I'm James David Manning. I'm the one that's calling for the stripping, defrocking, to defrock those that are promoting the big lie in support of the psychopath, the con man, the liar from way back when, Donald John Tribulation Trump. Several years ago, Donald John Trump met with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. They had an hour, 90-minute conference where there was no American interpreter, staff person meeting with Trump and Putin. While Donald Trump does not speak Russian and Vladimir Putin does not speak English, the only translator was a Russian translator who translated what Vladimir Putin said to Trump in English, and then he translated what Trump said in English to Vladimir Putin in Russian. It was an insult to our intelligence corps that the American interpreters and secretaries were not allowed in a meeting with Trump and Putin. When they came out of the meeting, they took the stage together in a dual, if you will, press conference, And I want you to hear what Trump said, because there'd been a lot of banter going back and forth that Putin had interfered with the 2016 election, that he was deeply involved in rigging the election. Parenthetically, Trump talking about the election being rigged now, he ought to know about that, because Vladimir Putin was deeply involved in rigging the election. And all security agents, the CIA, Homeland Security, and the said that the foreign aid that Colombia did, that Russia did interfere. Anyway, Trump did something which at this point should have turned every American who ever dreamed of supporting him away from him. Let's listen to what took place.
Would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
All I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be. I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer. The probe is a disaster for our country. I think it's kept us apart. It's kept us separated. There was no collusion at all. Everybody knows it.
All right, here, in the early days of Trump's campaign, shortly after coming down the escalator, I gave my support to him. He then did two things. One was he announced that Obama was legitimately born in Hawaii, that the testimony of his grandmother stating he was born in Kenya was a lie, and that all the efforts that we had put together over the last 8 years demonstrating he was not natural born, therefore he did not qualify to serve as U.S. president, Trump swept under the rug and said he was born in America. I said, that's tough, because that makes me now, Trump is now calling me a liar. And it goes worse, gets worse. He then after that says he was going to be better to the LGBTQ community and had the president of PayPal with him on stage in one of his campaign events. He said it's going to be better to the LGBTQ community than Hillary Clinton could ever be, and he waved the LGBTQ flag. That was it. I left. And I knew that Trump was a dishonest man from the get-go, before I endorsed him. But all politicians are greatly dishonest, so in that regard, he was no different. And the only thing that brought me to a time of endorsing him was that he had been, for the last 8 years, had been a staunch, what we refer to as birther, stating that Obama had not been. So I thought that once he took the keys of power and he could investigate Honolulu, Kenya, investigate all reports, birth certificates, that he would reveal that singular truth. And that's why I endorsed him for that. And he just threw that out the window even before his campaign got started good. What an insult. And a number of people felt insulted as well that were Trump supporters and birthers. And they allowed themselves to be called liars. They allowed themselves, you know what they said? They said, well, he had to do that in order to gain the presidency. He had to lie about Obama's birth certificate in order to gain the presidency. I said, what a damn hypocrite you are. Because that's what Obama did to get elected president. He lied about the birth certificate as well. But when Obama lied about the birth certificate, it was foul, it was un-American, it was unpatriotic, and it needed to be brought to task. And you hounded him for 8 years for lying about the birth certificate. Now, when Trump lies about the same birth certificate, about the same incident, all of a sudden, Trump is given a pass. I thought, what a damn hypocrite you are. At any rate, but I understand. I understand you swallowed that, and you swallowed the insult, many of you. But here's something that no one should have ever swallowed. Trump insulted the long heritage and history of America's intelligence. He insulted America's voting system, of which without our right to vote and without our elections being pure and true, we have no democracy. We have no nation. And Dan Coates, who was director of the National Intelligence Agency and Homeland Security and all the other agencies and CIA that had done work on this project regarding Russia interfering with the 2020 election, they all concluded there was evidence that Russia did meddle in the 2016 election. And Trump himself said to WikiLeaks, if you got that information, please turn it over. When Trump stood there on that stage with Vladimir Putin and said he believes Russia, he believes Vladimir Putin over the strength and the long-living legacy and integrity of our intelligence agencies, our voting systems, and the American people. When Donald Trump said he takes the word of Vladimir Putin over the American establishment, at that point, no American should have ever supported him again. No one should have ever supported him again. And I'll tell you, the people that marched on the 6th of January, when they assaulted the Temple of Democracy, those same people, every damn last one of them, who assaulted the Temple of Democracy and saying that Joe Biden stole the election, every last one of them knew in their hearts, that Trump and that Putin had meddled in the 2016 election. They knew it. But like the birth certificate and like the LGBTQ support, they simply swallowed it as a lie, a part of a grand case of hypocrisy, if not outright racism. And they allowed Vladimir Putin to put our entire electoral college, to put our voting system, to put our intelligence agencies down. And it'd been one thing if Trump thought that, but he would rather have been diplomatic. You don't embarrass America in public on a world stage like that. Even if Trump thought that Russia had nothing to do with it, you would have affirmed Vladimir Putin and put down America on the American stage. That is just, damn it, unheard of. And no decent human being should have ever allowed Trump to get away with that. But the Southern Baptists, the so-called birthers, a bunch of others allowed him to put America down. I mean, here's what I'm trying to say. Trump may have been right that Russia had nothing to do with the meddling in the 2016 election. He may have been right. But he didn't, as a diplomat, as a politician, even as a businessman. Trump knew that you didn't have to say that and make America look like we don't know what we're doing and that Russia and Vladimir Putin is smarter than we are. He could just held it to himself and maybe spoke about it in a private setting or in another setting where it would not have been so insulting to the American people. If you're a Trump supporter, after he insulted America like that, I have to ask, what the hell is wrong with you? Are you that un-American? Are you that anti-truth to allow Donald Trump to insult America? People run around talking about Trump said America first. No, it ain't America first. It's Trump first. And let me tell you why Trump did it. Trump is a businessman. He may not have been a school politician, but he was wise enough to know you just don't put that kind of stuff, that kind of dirty laundry out in public. Trump could have obfuscated the question like he so often does. You know why Trump put America, its intelligence agencies, its court systems, its CIA, while America put his voting, while Trump put all that, threw it in the garbage can and said, I believe Vladimir Putin, is because Trump don't give a damn about America. It ain't never been about America for him. It ain't never been about America for him. It's about what's good for Trump and Trump only. And if you think, whoever the hell you are, if you think that Trump, you can say what the hell you want to say about Biden and Camelback ain't Black Harris, and I'll agree with you. I'll say it too. But what I will say is, well, if you think that somebody that Trump gives two damns about you, then you are two dams in deep debt. Because that boy don't give two damns about nobody but Trump. But for you to let him put America down like that and not do nothing about it. And you say, well, maybe, Pastor, I didn't see it that way at the time. I was blinded by my distaste for Hillary Clinton and Obama. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But now you know. Now you know what you're going to do. What you're going to do. What you're going to say. Now you know. Are you going to still say, now that you know the truth, that Trump put America down because he don't give two damns about you or about America? The only thing that Trump ever cared about is himself. And the other thing was he had a motive. He was praying he'd get an opportunity to build a hotel in Moscow. And by giving Vladimir Putin all that credit, that he'd get an opportunity to build in Moscow. Trump doesn't care anything about America. He doesn't know how. He literally does not know how. You know, I've said about the Hamite brother, he has a cognitive dissonance problem, and he does. It's a psychological term, and anybody who studied Psychology 101, you know, anything about social interaction of humans and their interpretation, understand this term comes up right away as a psychiatric term, cognitive disagreement with truth. Trump is unable to carry anything. You can't even blame him for it. Were you to punt Trump, you say a man is getting ready to be executed for committing a murder, the judge will have him psychologically examined to see whether or not he understood what he was doing, if he understood the trial, if he understood, and the psychiatrist will come back and say, Your Honor, Judge, this man has no idea what he did. He has no recollection of how he did it or why he did it. You can't hold him accountable the way you would do reasonable thinking people who commit murder. He doesn't know. So to kill him in capital punishment mode would not serve any purpose because he doesn't even know what the hell he did. Anybody who put Trump before a psychiatrist and examine him, you will discover Trump does not have the psychological ability to care about any damn thing but Trump. He is void. He doesn't know how. He doesn't have the capacity. He doesn't have the neurons. He doesn't have the spirituality. He doesn't have the empathy. The man does not know what, he don't care about no damn body. He don't care about no damn body but Trump. Trump don't care about no damn body. He is cognitively incapable. The man is a psychotic. He is a psychotic, and he ran America as a criminal enterprise for 4 years. He is a psychotic. And there's no way he cares about you or Ivanka or anybody else for that matter. The only person, even Vladimir Putin knows that Trump don't care nothing about him. Vladimir Putin knew that Trump was using him. And that's just to close out here. Let's say, for instance, that one would argue that Vladimir Putin had something on Trump, such as the golden showers at one of the hotels where the prostitutes were allegedly peeing on Trump in one of the grand suites of one of the Russian hotels, and he had a bunch of Russian women come in and pee on him. I don't know if that happened or not, but that's what's been alleged in some of the reports that came out, and that there's video of it, or that there's video with Trump and other sexual entities, Or there's information about Trump's financial dealings, that he borrowed money from one of the banks that was involved. They borrowed money from some of the oligarchs in Russia. He owes Russia billions of dollars in money and so forth and so on. And so Trump he protected Vladimir Putin because he didn't want all this damaging information to come out about him. Can I say something to you? Trump and Vladimir Putin understands this, that even if Vladimir Putin had a treasure trove of videos of Trump and all kinds of sexual encounters there in Russia, or he had information about loans that Trump has borrowed from Russian oligarchs or Russian billionaires, he would never report that. He would never release that. He would never release. Vladimir Putin is too smart a politician to release that. Listen, if Vladimir Putin had released videos about Trump and prostitutes, who's to say that America doesn't have videos with Vladimir Putin and young boys? And even if that's not so, it isn't good. When you reach that level, you don't do that kind of a thing to your enemy. Only small-minded people would release something like that about their enemy because it doesn't look good. I mean, what would it look like on the world stage if it was reported that Vladimir Putin released X-rated videos about Trump? It would make Trump look suspicious, but it would make Vladimir Putin look small. There are a whole lot of people got a whole lot of information about other people, but they don't release it because the very fact that you are releasing it makes you look small. Now, what a lot of people do is that they release it, but they use some other name, and they use some other person, or they use some anonymous identity. And the reason why they use an anonymous identity, because even though the information that they're releasing could be damaging against the person you're releasing it, it's more damaging to the person who would choose to release something like that. And so for a country, for a nation like Russia to release something like that, whatever it is they had on Trump, would make Russia look small on the world stage. And they were never going to do that. They were never going to do that. Maybe WikiLeaks would introduce it, and that's what WikiLeaks was. WikiLeaks was a clearinghouse for people who wanted to release damaging information, but they wanted to throw a rock and hide their hands because they themselves knew that perhaps the information they were releasing about somebody else, they've done something worse. And somebody might say, well, hell, if you're releasing that about him, I'm going to release something about you. And the stuff becomes a chain reaction, like a nuclear explosion. And so people hide their hands and do it under an anonymous name. But Vladimir Putin would have never released, never, a single damaging thing against Trump. WikiLeaks, on the other hand, could release stuff, and the person releasing it could hide their hands. Putin's a wise man. Usually, people who live in glass houses don't like to throw stones. And if they do, they like to get somebody else to throw them. So, when somebody comes up here and releases some information about you and they don't give you their real name, you have to wonder, what you afraid of? What's wrong? What's the deal there? Putin would have never done that. He would have never done that. And only a person who was very small in their understanding would ever attack someone like that. Putin is a very wise politician, and so is Trump. Omarosa could say a whole lot of things about Trump. Let me ask you a question. Your wife, and the court systems of America says, your wife can't testify against you. You know why? Because she knows stuff about you that is deeply personal. And for a wife to then turn around after knowing you and then stand on a world stage or stand before a microphone and begin to blurt out every little thing about every time you pass gas, it's just unethical. It will make her look worse than it makes you look. Now, I'm going to damage you, but it makes her look all over. So the court said wives can't testify. And any wife that chooses, or any woman that chooses to go public, especially a wife chooses to go public about the intimacy of her with you, is lower than you. I can guarantee you that. Guarantee you. But there are people who have very little experience at life themselves. And so they go about this. That's why WikiLeaks became such a very powerful entity. At any rate, everybody, I'm James David Manning. I'm the Lord's servant. This is a bit of a news blog we do looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.